Hi, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy New Year. All the holidays. Everybody, I hope you have a lovely, lovely time. And I like to sing a little song. I get to do my happy dance, happy dance, happy dance. I get to do my happy dance because my socks are done. They're done. These are the December scrappy socks. Two of them. Two of them. These are for the Grocery Girls Sock Bash, which is on Ravelry, the green toes. And I threw in another skein, partial skein of some blue and green yarn to finish off the foot. And then the rest, which you've seen before, but they're done. And I'm very happy with them. As I said in last week's podcast, there are some things I would do differently. One is not change colors and at the bottom of the foot. I'll do that differently next time. And so I've been thinking about that and what are some good ways to accomplish what I did here with using up scraps in a nice one row stripe. And one of the things that another knitter over at the Grocery Girls Ravelry group did is they knit a sock called, I've got the pattern here too. It's called the Magic Heel Sock, and it's a tube sock. This is her picture. This is Crafty Jackma's tube sock. It's a magic heel sock. And what you do with this is a paid pattern by Judy Jewell. And I did buy it because I really wanted to know the proportions of this. But basically, it is one side of the sock has a rib, and that fits over the heel. And then it allows you to wear it without doing without turning a heel and without interrupting a stripe. And that was the other one I printed out. This one is by Banana B15. And if you've got a self-striping yarn that's really bold, and you don't want to interrupt that stripe at all with a contrast heel, this would be one way to do that. And you can see how that rib fits over the heel. It means there's a little bit of extra fabric in the instep, but that's going to stretch out. Tube socks are something that I used to knit a lot of. Particularly, I think they're very good for children. They're very good if you're knitting a gift and you don't know what the shoe size is. And they're very good for caretakers, for people, caretakers of people who need to be able to assist putting on a sock. I had to do that with my late stepson. We had to put his socks on for him. I knit tons of these for him. They were, these are, I have the pattern for this one. These are the spiral tube socks on Ravelry, where you do knit 2, purl 2, for 4 or 5 rows, and then you move it over one. You move the knits and the purls over one. And so, and then you just do a regular toe and a regular cuff. And I did these in worsted weight. I made, as I said, a lot of them back when I was a caretaker for a child who needed help with socks. So I think for the scrappy socks, this pattern, these kind of patterns, doing it tubular, then you are able to take the color changes and put them on the top of the sock or move them away from, the foot where you're walking. So I'm probably going to try this one. I really like how Crafty Jackma did a beautiful job photographing those socks and showing off the rib on one side and the smooth stockinette on the other. So yeah, I think I'm going to try that for my next scrappy pair. I'm also almost done with the the Shopful. This is edition 3 socks, and I didn't have enough of this bright pinkish red to do a toe. I weighed it, and I barely had a full gram of yarn left of that. And it's that ball is only 45 yards, so I wasn't surprised. But I put that stripe in there. I knit 50 rows from the pickup of the instep, and then did 4 rows, which is just about how much yarn I had left. 4 rows of that bright. And so that to me, push that in. It's not doing justice. The camera's not doing justice to the colors. I'll put an actual photograph of these on my Ravelry page and link to them, so you can actually hopefully see the actual colors as they're going. But I don't have the stripe on this one yet, but they'll be done this week. So that's great. And then I had a wonderful breakthrough today. I have been thinking about our project of, 2025, the year of UFOs, Finish Your Frog. This is a Ravelry group I've started. I'll link below. Hope you guys will join in. And it's about finishing projects and frogging those that don't serve you anymore. And so I have been trying to think about how to organize by month what I want to work on. And as I mentioned last week, I want to have some quick wins in January. So today I was looking at some ways to outline what I want to do. And there is a website called Calendarpedia, calendarpedia.com, that has free calendars, free printable PDF calendars. And they have these really nice, colorful goal planners with blocks for the month. You can do it horizontal, or you can do it, well, they're both horizontal, but you can see that they have a wider page for your, depending on how you want to do it. The layouts are different. That's my point. Different layouts. You can pick whichever one you like better. And this is going to be really helpful for me to write, for instance, in March and April, to put my Lenten project of my plan to knit blankets during that time. And I can put the sock themes in here and for grocery girls and be planning that out. And then the other thing that I already have planned out, which was the breakthrough in terms not only of time, but of physical space this year. And I think it's really the greatest success I've had in terms of my knitting life this year, in addition to finishing 15 pairs of socks, because this edition 3 pair will be pair 15 for 2024. The other thing that really worked for me this year was working with my guild and having sock kits put together from my stash and distributing them to my guild, letting them take whichever I put in Ziploc bags, a free pattern for a hat and the yarn from my stash, whether it was leftover yarn or new yarn. I didn't worry about that. I just made up kits. I didn't use paid patterns because I don't think that's fair to the people who charge for patterns, but free patterns from Ravelry I could give away. And so and there's tons of hats. I mean, hats are something that a lot of people, even those that charge for other projects, will have a free hat pattern on their website. So I would print out a hat pattern and put the yarn and make sure there was enough yarn to finish that hat in a Ziploc bag. And I put together, because I have a huge stash, as many of you do, enough to give one to every guild member at the meeting. And we have about 22 members. I think we had 16 at the time. And so I had this big bin with hat kits. And to my delight, every single person at the meeting took one. And so we knit, all of us, for the month of September to October, between our September and October meetings, knit a hat for charity. And not only did we knit a hat for charity, but I had a resource that would take the hats. I think that's very important, to know when you're knitting something for charity that there's somebody that wants this specific thing. So I had that all laid out. We have something called a smitten tree at my church, which is a tree that just has hats and mittens on it for, and they're given away to the needy, via another church that does a lot of work with the city's homeless. Um, I think some of the children's hats are given to a local school. We have a school a public school that we've adopted as a church. Anyway, these hats go out the door and have a home. So that, I think that's very important. But I gave away all of these kits. Everybody knits hats. Some of them turned them in November, and some of them turned in December at our Christmas party. Our November guild meeting was, show off the hat you knit, share your pattern, share what your experience was knitting the hat. And we just went around and did a show and tell of all the hats, which was really fun. And so that is now going to be an annual tradition. I'm signed up to do the November uh, guild program, and it's hats, and I will be giving away hat yarn, and um, people will knit hats, and in November we'll do a show and tell of hats, and they will go off to the smitten tree. And so the breakthrough on that was, now I have a time and a place and a point on the calendar where I know I'm going to be knitting hats. And so every single oddball piece of yarn, skein of yarn, half skein of yarn that I'm holding on to, or that I picked up off the free table because, oh, that'll make a hat. And I emptied it all, pulled it all off the shelves and out of the bins and out of the drawers. And my husband gave me a 27-gallon bin, big, big bin. And I filled it with hat yarn, which has freed up so much space in my knitting space. Um, and I don't have to open that again until late September. And that is so freeing to know that, yeah, I'm going to open it up. I have plans for that yarn. I will be bagging it up and getting it ready for guild. I'll be knitting hats out of it, and they will go someplace. But I don't have to think about that until September. So I can think about the UFOs that I want to finish. I can think about, do I want to plan a sweater for the summer? Do I want to plan baby things for whatever, for charity or for selling or for whatever I want to do? So um, it's just really freeing to have that kind of goal that is, and all these business people talk about SMART goals, which are uh, specific, measured, attainable, what is it, timely, and I forget, realistic and timely. I think that's what it is. Um, and so the timely part of it, of knowing there's a start and end date, it's in the future, but I know when it is, and I can release that from my mind until September, is just so freeing of space and mental energy and so forth. So I offer that up to you as something that you might want to try. Uh, you can I can certainly do hat knit alongs on this podcast in um, November also. We can do something. But I just think it meant a lot to me to figure that out. Um, One thing I'm going to start doing on this podcast next year is, I gave away this year, also in the process of downsizing and being more intentional in the knitting things that I own. I gave away 50 knitting books to a reuse store in town, um, that makes craft projects and craft items available, a lot of them to teachers, a lot of them to crafters, and so forth. Um, and I did that to free up space. and I kept 60 books. I mean, it was less than half of my book stash, but I wanted to get to 50, and I got to 50, and I did it painlessly. But it made me think about the books that I do own and how many of them have um, really interesting introductions and qualities about them that are worth sharing. And so I'm going to be doing that every week. Every week that I do this podcast in 2025, I'm going to share a knitting book that I like and why I like it, and maybe read a little bit from the introduction to give you guys a flavor of writing about knitting, which I think is important. And so I'm starting that today, and we're going to start with the classic. We're going to start with Knitting Without Tears. This is a first edition of Knitting Without Tears from 1971. My mother found it in a thrift store. My late mother found it in a thrift store the week that Elizabeth Zimmerman passed away. So this book is very precious to me. This particular edition is very precious to me because my mom bought it for me, and it's first edition, so it's not in perfect condition or anything. But how exciting to have this! Elizabeth Zimmerman, Goddess of Knitting. I did go 1 year before youngest child was born, so that would have been 2005, I believe. I went to knitting camp with Meg Swanson, and that was, an amazing experience. But I want to read a little bit from chapter 1 of Knitting Without Tears, The Opinionated Knitter. And I just love this, and I hope you'll like the reminder of it. I'm sure many of you have this book in your stash as well. Most people have an obsession. Mine is knitting. Your hobby may be pie baking, playing the piano, or potbelly stove collecting, and you can sympathize with my enthusiasm. Having an obsession of your own. Will you forgive my single mindedness and my tendency to see knitting in everything? Carvings and sculpture remind me only of Aran and other textured designs. When I see a beautiful print, my first thought is how it would adapt to color pattern knitting. Confronted by a new fashion, I immediately start drawing in the air with my forefinger to see if it would suit itself to knitting, and if so, how. Which way the grain should run, if the shape could be knitted in, and what stitch would be most effective. So please bear with me and put up with my opinionated, nay, sometimes cantankerous attitude. I feel strongly about knitting. And now on to page 6. Tight knitters lead a hard and anxious life. They grab needles and wool so tightly that great strain is put upon their hand muscles, nay, arm, shoulder, and even neck muscles in extreme cases. They must let go of everything from time to time just to rest, and then resume knitting with what looks like a careworn expression, although they neither admit nor in most cases believe this. The tight little stitches they make must be forced along their right needle, and more tight little stitches forced up along their left needle to be squeezed in their turn. The resulting fabric in knitting worsted with 8 needles, size 8 needles, can have a gauge of 5 stitches to the inch because of the great tightness. The identical gauge may be easily and calmly achieved by a loose knitter on, say, number 5 needles. If you are a beginning knitter, don't try to knit tightly in order to make your work look neat. If you are a habitually tight knitter, try to kick the habit. Loose knitting tends to make your stitches look somewhat uneven, but what of it? Are you trying to reproduce a boughten machine-made sweater? Besides, it is surprising what blocking and a few washings will do to uneven knitting. I used to think that people in the olden days were marvelously even knitters because all really ancient sweaters are so smooth and regular. Now I realize that they probably knitted just as I do, rather erratically, and that it is time, the great leveler, which has wrought the change. Time and many washings. Knitting Without Tears. Love this book. And I'll link below. I'm not an Amazon person. Like, I'm not a person that sells through Amazon or has a link or anything like that. So associate. I'm not that. So I'll just link to wherever. And this is my last podcast until the 31st. So I'm going to do a New Year's resolution show on New Year's Eve. And we will see you then. I will see you then. You will see me then. I think that's what I mean. Happy, happy holidays, and we will see you next time. Have a great Christmas.